Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. So a brilliant overview, I think, of what's going on around the world and the role of the technology and business services industry within that. I've got a few questions I want to pick up, and I know there's already a couple of questions in the box, and then hopefully some more. So Q&A is open. Please do put any questions for any of our speakers in, or any observations if you don't agree with what might have been discussed. So one of the main things I wanted to pick up on is Marek, in your chart, you talked about, opposition to outsourcing, and sometimes there's an internal opposition to outsourcing. We've long struggled with the reputation of outsourcing, and I was really keen to get all of your perspectives as to where you think the reputation for outsourcing currently is at the moment. Is it at an all-time high? Has it changed? So Marek, you're laughing. I have to go to you first.
Okay, sure. Actually, I was on both sides of the fence. I used to work almost 15 years in outsourcing, and now I moved and help clients to set up the shared service centers. Although we sometimes also, recommend the BPO model. Unfortunately, when I listen to clients, this reputational, element is still not the greatest. What generally they say is that outsourcers are good when it comes to basic work, and they are cheap, they are standard, and they can help to build quickly GBS operations. What they complain about is innovation, and actually I think the main argument is the outsourcing stayed with the labor-intensive, services, and never had courage to move into technology work. So simply replacing, cheap labor in wherever, nearshore, offshore locations with fully automated solutions. On the other side, while sitting in the in the BPO chair for many years, I know that clients, once signing the long-term BPO deals, they don't care anymore. Yeah, they say, I'm getting my 10-15% productivity savings per year because this is contracted. Why should I bother? Yeah, I'm not happy for investment. So I think what is missing still is this real partnership between clients and service providers, and and actually both sides were never able to create a fully value creation kind of solutions. I'm not sure, maybe some of you know, but there is a concept of vested contracting, which by the way we sometimes often support. It comes from Nordics, where both sides are sitting together. It's not RFP. The RFP means not request for proposal. It means request for partnership, and the whole deal is to actually bring value on both sides and actually gain on both sides, right? Very few such deals on the market still, and when you go and see the typical RFP is just show me KPIs, like we will use contracts, we will challenge you guys in the you service providers based on the KPIs and the SLAs, right? So I'm afraid it's still not what the world could be if there is more partnership between those two sides.
Right, interesting. I'm going to come to you on this in a second, Nitish, as to whether you see the partnering aspect, and the collaboration working much better now than it did pre-pandemic. But Steig, I wanted to come to you and get, what is the latest American response to outsourcing and offshoring? Because obviously there's been a lot of change of government strategies to becoming a little bit more nationalistic and more protectionist. So what's the latest you're seeing there? Yeah,
it's certainly one of the bigger topics that is happening right now. And so, I think at the end of the day, the dollars are going to drive a lot of this. There's a lot of discussion about bringing things back, either whether they're here in the States or, moving things to Mexico and things like that. but we've only started to see very small amount of that actually taking place. But I think as tensions kind of continue to go down the road they're going with China and things like that, I think it's going to be a natural progression for us to kind of continue to look at how we get and where we get our goods from.
Right, okay, thank you. And Nitish, coming back to you, as I said, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so Kerry, again, if you're looking for a contradiction, I'll be disappointing you. So I do agree with Marek. I think I have a more hopeful view of the world, where I think what we're starting to see, and maybe the factors in the last 2 years have led to this, where effectively what happened with the pandemic and now what's happening even with the current situation that we spoke about, is there a sense that the playbook to respond to this and how to respond to this has not been written. So in that way, clients or enterprises and providers and partners have a feeling of that we are all in this together. So I see a lot more empathy and creativity in deal solutioning now. Yes, can we improve on the way we contract, the way we track SLAs and other metrics to really incentivize partnership? Absolutely. But I think these two events have been such a shock to the system that I see a lot more openness for clients as well, and sourcing teams and procurement teams to seek partner and provider feedback. So I think this is a great moment for collaboration. Yes, there are some more successes than others. So I do believe we're on the right path. I think as with everything, we want to accelerate further. But I think what I also see with a lot of clients is they want to see some of it. They want to be fast followers. They don't want to be the first ones out of the door. So when they see some of this, and when they see industry associations, they see other market bodies celebrate the success of creative partnership, I think that opens a lot more doors.
Yes, we did a survey as we came out of the pandemic, and that survey indicated that trust in partnerships had actually increased through the pandemic. So it was sort of like partnerships around the world that helped companies not just keep the lights on, but the wheels turning, and the fact that they did manage to mobilize very quickly to a working at home environment and keep operations going, that actually led to a boom in trust. I think, and I have a degree of concern at the moment, that because the industry has boomed so much, the service providers are all, going after stretch targets. They're all growing, as you presented, at a rate of knots. That there is a degree of concern I have of the industry over-promising and then under-delivering and then falling back into disrepute. Would you agree that is a potential scenario that we're facing?
Yeah, it's a good point, and there are no easy answers. I think, is that a potential scenario that we're facing? Absolutely. But I think what's happened is, because these events have come in such close proximity to each other, nobody's taking any assumptions going into this. So what I think there is no room for complacency. Whether you're a provider or an enterprise, there are just so many moving parts that I don't think people will get into the trap of over promising and under delivering just because they can't, and it's such a transparent environment right now. I think what's also happening is some of the more structural issues in the market, whether it's the demand supply or the talent mismatch. I think there have been more constructive steps to ascertain that, and also some of the demand cooling off will help in some of the craziness when we think about what was happening on the talent side, which fundamentally drives a lot of technology services and outsourcing, because it's quite principally still a people's business. So I think there is a potential to go into that overdrive, but I think the market seems to be cooling off, which will hopefully take away some of these unique factors that have contributed to this tightness over the last 2-3 years.
Right. So let's stop on the subject of talent. So one of the figures that's absolutely startled me is that Cognizant lost 93,000 people in 1 quarter alone. So attrition in the industry is incredibly high. Really interested in getting everyone's perspective on, how they see that changing and which roles they see as being most impacted. So Plamen, I'm going to go to you first, if I may, as to, how difficult and concerned are you about the future access to talent for Labcorp's programs?
This is something that I have not mentioned, but so far we are having close to zero attrition for 2022. Which is indicative for the engagement of our employees. employees. Of course, we're supposed to have a lower attrition during the first years of our center being set up and further developed. But I'm rather optimistic on the future. The labor market is dynamic and it requires a lot of flexibility and agility from the companies to be able to adapt to the labor market in terms of remuneration, in terms of benefits, in terms of working environment and corporate culture that is corresponding to this working environment and the well-being of the employees. At the same time, I believe that we should be focusing as well on the digital revolution going forward, introducing artificial intelligence, RPA tools, enforcing them, getting better at this end in order to release the pressure on the labor market for our industry in terms of sourcing.
Yeah, absolutely. So responsible automation is one approach to reducing the pressure on the labour market, but the use of open talent and the gig economy is another one. So obviously the question was pointed at you, Marek. You know, how do you see the gig economy or open talent models sort of like working with the current classical models? So the question from Plamen Sekov.
Right. I think it's so far it's only popular in technology business. I haven't seen, you know, lots of those gig economy in the, you know, non-IT processes like finance, HR, etc. Yes, and it gives flexibility. So obviously, you know, I was talking about this co-sourcing model, and you know, more and more companies are looking for talent everywhere. Actually, you know, COVID also taught us that, you know, you could actually work from any place in the world, delivering you know, services. So and a good example is also Ukraine. Actually, you know, in Poland we were hoping that, you know, that this will create. I know maybe this is the wrong word, hoping, but we expected that with the, you know, big immigration from Ukraine, there will be a lot of, you know, candidates for tech work in Poland. It never happened, you know, because the Ukrainian guys, they are still working from homes, even under the, you know, very bad war circumstances, but they are able to deliver services, and they are not willing to relocate. They can't, by the way, as well, because of the martial law. But this shows that it's not only the core sourcing and this gig economy, but it's also working from everywhere will make an impact on the, you know, on the IT world particularly. But one more thing about talent is inflation. You know, that will actually create a lot of challenges for organizations, because simply we are not used to this. We don't know how to behave. And, you know, when I speak with HR directors in those organizations, they don't know how to actually change their pay strategy to the new world. And okay, the crisis or recession is coming, so probably, you know, it will slow down a little bit the turnover for now. But once it's gone, I'm afraid that many companies will, you know, wake up in a very difficult situation, not knowing, you know, how to remunerate the employees, and, you know, how to react to this, you know, 10, 15, 20% of inflation in the countries.
Yeah, so it's certainly something that we've been talking a lot about, is how do the buyers and the service providers sort of like manage the cost of living adjustments that are actually going on? Where does responsibility kind of lie? And I think there's quite a few holes and quite a few contracts out there that's causing, you know, a degree of adversity on that very subject. So I want to make sure that we do answer the question from the floor. So we haven't talked a great deal about Africa. From my perspective, we are seeing Africa as a growing delivery destination. So so we do a lot of work with South Africa, but that's for delivery of voice and other customer services. And we're seeing that splinter more out or spread more out into countries like Rwanda, and obviously North Africa. Egypt is doing some great work in both customer service and digital. So this question from the floor is, you know, how does this this tech company best approach outsourcing his services into the US and Europe? Steig, have you got any view on that? Is Africa sort of like a growing destination for American companies? You're on mute, Steig.
It's always got to get somebody on the call, right? This got me this time. Yeah, I was saying, I do think it's starting to enter the conversation, right? Looking at the labor costs that are existing over there and just the overall sort of corporate and governmental structure. I think, you know, certainly starting to gain some interest. I can't speak exactly how much traction is being made right now, but perhaps one of the other panelists might have perspective on that as well.
Yep. So Kerry, I can quickly add to what Steig said, and I'd agree with the sentiment. And I know we don't have a lot of time. So my two pieces of feedback or advice would be, I think, focusing on specific swim lanes where Africa can provide more to the world compared to other traditional geographies of service delivery. For instance, you're starting to see, as you mentioned, with some of the voice work, you know, a higher propensity to look at Africa. I would also focus on time zone proximity and just general proximity to the European region to serve some of the clients here versus North America. So because otherwise you will run into some of the larger providers. So I think figuring out, you know, what's the target group, but what's the swim lane and what the dominant queue in terms of the attractiveness for Africa looks like. I think that's definitely one thing, and especially proximity to Europe and some time zone overlaps, better time zone overlaps help. And I think the second is, going back to my earlier point, focusing on the right skills, because not all of these skills have the same kind of demand supply tightness or client propensity to outsource or pay a higher premium for. So focusing on the more in-demand skills where traditional geographies have been a little bit difficult to outsource from, that would be another route to think of.
Okay, so last word to you, Plamen. Obviously, you've set up delivery coming from both India and Southeastern Europe, Bulgaria in particular. Would you have contemplated Africa at any point?
Yes, definitely. I think that as a growing market, it has the potential to be successful in providing the services that we are needing.
Okay, cool. Right, we are at time, and I do know what actually happens in this new virtual world. As soon as you sort of like hit that 30 or that hour, everybody drops off. So before everybody drops off, I wanted to say a massive thank you to all of our speakers and panelists today. So thank you very much, Steig. You can now go off and have some coffee or maybe go back to bed, whichever you, whatever you're thinking. To you, Nitish, to you, Marek, and to you, Plamen, thank you all so much. And thank you to all the organisations that are part of the Global Technology and Business Services Council. We do have 2 more in this series running. So next Tuesday, we'll be looking at globalization and how different delivery destinations can address the resilience of organizations as they face the challenges we have on the roads ahead. And then the third one will be on the subject of talent, what we're doing to address talent shortages, and the role that open talent and the gig economy could well have in assisting the industry deliver to the demand that it's currently got. So thank you all very much. And one point is at 12 o'clock today, but next week we go into daylight saving, so the hour does change. So so British summer time ends, so please make sure you've got that correct in your calendars. If not, you'll be very disappointed by joining an hour too early or an hour too late, whichever way it goes. But anyway, thank you all so much, and yeah, recordings will be made available to everybody, and let's carry on the conversation. So thanks all, have great days.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.